The Victorian era was absolutely disgusting and we would have not survived. Here's why. First of all, there was basically a 50-50 chance you'd make it past 5. Your baby bottle alone was crawling with bacteria because of its shape and people thought it didn't have to be washed for 3 weeks. Ew. Your milk was mixed with borax, which is roach poison, because people thought it would purify the milk. As a matter of fact, all your food was poisoned. A third of your bread was chalk. There was also clay and sawdust, lead in cheese, wine, sugar, lead in your tea, lead in your candy, and mercury. Your green paint had arsenic in it, so even breathing wasn't a good idea, and this green back then was used to paint literally everything. Your brown paint was made from ground up mummies. The shade was called mummy brown. They also ate the mummies, like all the mummies. You were nobody if you didn't come back from Egypt with a mummy to eat at your mummy unwrapping party. They also consumed regular corpses as medicine, like a yummy piece of skull with molasses to cure epilepsy. White skin was in, of course, so women washed their faces with ammonia and used arsenic lotion. Finally, they added a healthy layer of lead-based makeup. There was lead in your toys, there was lead in basically everything. Later on, there was radiation in male contraceptive, there was poop on the streets, poop in the rivers, poop in your drinking water. Toilets would randomly blow up. Theaters used fire as special effects, but there were no emergency exits, so that was dumb. Actually, fires were everywhere because of gas lamps and highly flammable everything. The gas itself was also poisonous. And if you managed to survive all that, there was also cholera, typhoid, tuberculosis, scarlet fever, yellow fever.
All praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High. However, Shamya, Shaiba, Shamraka, Kwadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the Great Millstone, and salutations to all you sincere Kiam. And this is your brother Bawan back again with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Shamya, Shai, Shamraka, Kwadash. All praises and glory is due. Right, so I'm really tired right now, and I'm really pissed right now, okay? Because Jake loves to game, right? And Jake is a big gamer, especially when it comes to your gacha games. Like if you are familiar with them, your Genshin Impact, your Wuthering Waves, so on and so forth, and all these gacha games, and you mainly have these games being made by your Far Eastern / Eastern companies, right? So your China, your Japan, your Korea, and there was this new one just came out recently called Silver Palace, and this is exactly what you're seeing, right? On the videos right now. This is exactly what you're seeing. Silver Palace, okay, and that is the new gacha game that just recently came out. And this game is, let's just play a little bit of the trailer, okay? Let's just play a little bit of the trailer. And of course, I'm going to put a copyright disclaimer at the beginning of this video, just to show that I'm not profiting from, using this video in any way, shape, or form. And this is only for educational purposes only, because I'm going to learn a lot of you jakes that are ignorant on how Esau's lifestyle is and how Esau was living, right? But let's get into it.
At your fingertips, got cravings? Order on Glovo. Running low on toiletries? Glovo's got you.
Now, of course, you have ads.
Order anything you want and receive it in
hold on,
minutes.
just let these ads just go through. So what the hell is this now? Anyhow,
You may be the best detective.
and this is it right here.
But Sylvania isn't the best city there is.
Alright, so you see this new game that is being made by some random Chinese studio, and basically it's based on a Victorian era aesthetic, right? So when I was watching the trailer for this video, I was mad as hell, okay? Because you have this, Esau is a fucking liar. Esau is the devil. Esau is a liar, okay? Look at how these streets look, okay? And look at how the game looks, and look at how they use the Victorian era aesthetic. This is not what the Victorian era looked like, okay? And I'm tired of Esau's romanticized version of European history, where these devils lie through their teeth about, their own history, okay? But let's keep playing.
It is like liquid silver, always changing.
Look at how clean the streets look. Victorian era streets are not this clean. And of course you already saw the video before this one, showing an example of that. But let's keep going into it.
What is true might not always stay true. Sin and evil stalk the city like a stubborn shadow.
Alright, so that's basically what I wanted to get from that, right? So this is the game that inspired this video, and the game is basically based off the Victorian era. So you see how clean the streets look. You saw even the sunlight shining through on the city. Hey man, anybody that knows anything about the UK knows that it's not really or it doesn't really get as much sun as other places in the world. So let's get into this. So this is michaelyonkin.com. Okay, health and sanitary conditions in Victoria era London. Right, so during the Victorian era in the 19th century, that is the 1800s, health and sanitary conditions were not so great. Viruses and bacteria were quickly spread throughout London, such as tuberculosis, smallpox, measles, scarlet fever, cholera, etc. Horse transportation and cesspools filled the street with feces. Viruses were untreatable at the time, and sewage disposal was at its lowest peak, right? And this is exactly how Esau lives. Or rather, this was how Esau was living during the Victorian era. And hell, it's still how Esau is living up till now. Because don't let these devils fool you, man. If you go to the streets of London, it's still filthy as hell. Alright? You go to the streets of France, filthy as hell. Even the streets of America, man. Look at New York, right? You have rats the size of cats running around all over New York. Even here in Nigeria, the rats don't even get that big, you know? And that shows you just how filthy Esau's cities are. And New York is like the largest city on the earth, and it's like one of the best cities, quote unquote, to live in. But yet you have rats all over the cities, all over the sewers in the cities. You don't have proper waste disposal in the cities, right? You have, homeless people, right, all over this, everywhere in the cities, because Esau does not know how to run a kingdom. And we've been saying this as the men of the Lord, right, that the earth is under poor management. The earth is in need of new rulership. The earth is in need of new management, because Esau, Edom, the so-called red man, does not know how to run the earth. And you can see that clearly, okay, from just how he was living during the Victorian era. So let's keep going into it. Horses, transportation and cesspools filled the streets with feces. Viruses were untreatable at the time, and sewage disposal was at its lowest peak. One of the biggest sanitary downgrades was the transportation by horses and use of cesspools in the 19th century. Horses were the only source of transportation, besides walking, of course. Horses were walking all day and constantly hungry and thirsty. There was nowhere to dispose of the animal feces, so it was found all over the streets, which is funny because if you had simply read the scriptures, you would know exactly how to dispose of feces. And let's get that, right? Let's go into that. So let's quickly bring it out. And the same thing even happens even today in Esau cities, because you have all these people that have dogs, right? And whenever they walk their dogs, the dog always goes and poops. And a lot of these Edomites out here, and a lot of these Babylonians, they always just leave the poop there and just walk away. It's not everybody that will clean up that shit, man. Anyway, let's get into this. So yeah, even in the so this is basically how Victorian era London was. The streets were filled with feces of both human beings and horses. But let's get this. How does that precept go again? I think he was like a shovel or something like that. And I've forgotten how that precept goes. Let me try and see if I can remember. I've forgotten how that precept goes. Basically, when you want to, in a faraway land, okay, because here it is. So this is the book of Deuteronomy 23, and I'll start from verse 12. Hold on. Here it is. So Deuteronomy 23 verse 13. And thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon, and it shall be, when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back, and cover that which cometh from thee. For Yahweh thy power walketh in the midst of thy camp, to deliver thee, and to give up thine enemies before thee. Therefore shall thy camp be holy, that he see no unclean thing in thee, and turn away from thee. Right. And there's a reason why you have things like septic tanks, okay, where basically you have things like here in Nigeria. I think they call it a borehole, right? Not a ball. That's not a ball. So like, yeah. sock away, yeah, that's what we call it here in Nigeria, sock away, where basically you dig deep into the ground, right, and create a giant concrete block within inside the ground where you store all the feces, right, and every single house has it. And hey, from time to time, you have this you have these I've got either lasma or loma that comes in, right, drains the tanks, and takes it out of out of the cities, right, far away, and basically I don't really know where they take it to, right, but basically they just put it deeper underground than normal, okay. And that's basically how sewage is run here in is run here in Nigeria. And hey, it goes back to the scriptures, because normally your sewage is supposed to be, all right, you have, because normally what you would have are these outhouses, right, but it was connected to an even deep, which was always connected to a deeper something like a soccer way, that where basically all the feces, right, all the, if you go to the toilet, everything that comes out of you will go deep into the earth, right. So you always have to clean that up, okay. You take your dump, you wipe your ass as well, because hey, these devils, he's like the devil, man, because at times these devils don't even wipe. You hear these are talking about how he doesn't even wipe their ass, and they're walking around with them, dookie, and Esau is the devil. And then I hear about how these devils don't even wash their hands, even to this day, right? Because you have this big thing on TikTok, the washcloth debate, right, or the washcloth trend, where you have Edomites basically coming out and saying that they don't use washcloths, right? They just pour the water on their bodies, and they don't even shower regularly. Because here in Nigeria, when you shower twice a day, one in the morning and one in the night, because it's hot as hell out here. If you see my recent camp videos, you always see me out there, I'm sweating like crazy, because it's hot as hell out here. The sun is out, everywhere is hot. So if you go out there, you bear the heat of the day, and you come back home, you're going to be filthy, right? So you take a bath, and then you take a bath in the morning, and you also take a bath in the night before you go to bed. Like right now, I've already taken Jake has already gone, hit the showers, right, washed up, right, I'm clean, and I'm clean and everything like that. And now I'm just going to go to bed. When I wake up tomorrow, I'm still going to take another bath again, right? Because that's how we do it here in Nigeria, because of how easy it is to get sweaty and dirty, okay. But over there in Babylon, man, Esau talking about how they're taking a bath once a week. I can look at all these different videos about the whole washcloth trend on TikTok, about these Edomites basically admitting that, oh, they don't take baths regularly. And that's how Esau lives, man. And this is even showing you, back in this Victorian right, this Victorian era time, this is how Esau was living, right? After these devils had kicked out all the Moors, they went back to the filth and the squalor that they were in before the Moors. But let's keep going into it. Right. There was nowhere to dispose of the animal feces, so it was found all over the streets. The government was sick of complaints and decided to hire young boys to walk around with the horses and pick up its feces. Over time, the situation didn't work out as well as the government had hoped. As a result, the streets were found to be covered in feces again. In the Victorian era, toilets weren't available, so every home had a cesspool. The only known place with toilets was called the Crystal Palace. Cesspools were basically just deep holes that people would go to the bathroom in. Over time, these cesspools would fill up, and night workers would go around and empty them. It was illegal to empty cesspools in the daytime because of the disgusting smell. Some villagers would dump buckets of feces into the sidewalk in the middle of the day, which was another sanitary issue, right? Because this is how Esau operates, man. This is how the Esau operates, right? Imagine just, even if you say that, oh well, the sockaway, right, the cesspool that you had filled up, the next thing I'll do is just throw all the dirt and the feces and the excrement, all of that, just into the streets, right? This is what was going on in Victorian era London, 1800s, right? During the height of the during the decline of the transatlantic slave trade. Because if I recall correctly, the transatlantic slave trade was illegalized by the UK in the 1810s, right? And this is how Esau was living in the UK. And it's not just in the UK that things like this were happening, right? But I'm using this as an example because you see, it tells us, because you see, that's what are they calling it again? That show, right? Or I was talking about the show, but the game that I was talking about, that's basically, it was basically giving you that Victorian aesthetic, but it's not giving you the whole aesthetic, okay? Because this is the reality of Victorian era London. But you ask these Edomites, they'll tell you that, oh, it was a time of high fashion, Gothic architecture, so on and so forth. But this is the part they won't tell you about, okay? The reality of everyday life in Victoria era London. Right. And like I was saying, man, it wasn't just in the UK, okay? These things were happening all over Europe because Esau is the devil, okay? And these devils do not know how to practice proper hygiene, all right? That's why the scriptures has laws of hygiene in it as well. Basically things that would make you unclean, and if you are unclean, you have to, leave the city, okay? Wash yourself and be unclean until the evening. So you have to leave the city while you were unclean during that time period. So you'd have like places outside of the city where somebody that was unclean could just stay there until they were clean again during the evening. So let's get that, okay? So this is the book of Leviticus 7 verse 21. Moreover, the souls that touch any unclean thing, such as the uncleanness of man, or any unclean beast, or any abominable unclean thing, and eat the flesh of the sacrifice of the peace offerings, which pertain unto Yahweh, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. Okay, hold on, let me that's the one that was the one I was looking for. Alright, Leviticus 11, and I'll start from Leviticus 11 verse 20. Hold on, let me get another precept. Let me get a better precept, okay? Just to get my point across. Okay, let me get another precept. Alright, Leviticus 11, and I'll start from verse 23. And upon whatever, okay, let me go to the top. Okay, Leviticus 11 verse 29. These also shall be unclean unto you among the creeping things that creep upon the earth, the weasel and the mouse and the tortoise after his kind, and the ferret and the chameleon and the lizard and the snail and the mole. These are unclean unto you among all that creep. Whosoever doth touch them when they be dead shall be unclean until the even. And upon whatever any of them when they are dead doth fall, it shall be unclean, whether it be any vessel of wood, or raiment, or skin, or sack, whatever vessel it be, wherein any work is done. It must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until the even. So it shall be cleansed. And every earthen vessel, whereinto any of them falleth, whatsoever is in it shall be unclean, and ye shall break it. Of all meat which may be eaten, that on which such water cometh shall be unclean, and all drink that may be drunk in every such vessel shall be unclean. Right, so basically, and if you touch the corpse of these animals, you have to be you are unclean until evening. So you have to leave the city, right? Wash yourself and be unclean until evening. And anything that the dead bodies of those animals touch are also unclean until the evening. They have to be washed, right, before they can be used again in the evening. And this is just the sanitary and hygienic laws that are in the scriptures in order to prevent diseases, okay, from spreading. And the reason why you have all these crazy ass diseases out here, flesh-eating bacteria, so on and so forth, is because Esau Edom is unhygienic as hell, right? That's why these devils are walking around infecting God with smallpox when they first, landed among the Native Americans. That's why you have all these reports of when the Spanish conquistadors first came, right? Guys like Cristobal Columbus and the like. Now basically they're talking about how they were smelling and filthy as hell, right? That's the first Spanish invaders that came after Columbus. The Native Americans, they said that they could smell them all the way from before they even left their boats. Then this is the devil, okay? But let's go into this as well. This is also another thing I wanted to bring out. Right, and this is going into Ignaz Semmelweis. Okay, Ignaz Semmelweis, and I think I've already mentioned this individual before, okay? So Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian physician, is best known for his pioneering work in infection control and his introduction of hand washing to the medical practice. And you heard that right. This Hungarian professor was the one that introduced hand washing as a medical practice, okay? Because before you had, before these surgeons started washing their hands every time before a surgery, there was a time where, in ESOS medicine, you weren't required to wash your hands before a surgery. But let's keep going. He demonstrated that puerperal fever, childbed fever, a deadly infection after childbirth, could be significantly reduced by disinfecting hands after examining cadavers. This was a revolutionary idea as it challenged the prevailing scientific and medical beliefs of the time. And let me just quickly get the book of Job, right? The book of Job 13 verse 4. But ye are forgers of lies, ye are all physicians of no value. Right. So basically what happened is that doctors were, commonly examining cadavers, right? Your autopsies and your biopsies and the like. And after they would finish, right, their operations, their surgeries on these dead bodies, they would just, carry those same tools and go and deliver babies. They wouldn't wash their tools, they wouldn't wash their hands, they wouldn't even wash or change their medical attire. They would carry that same filthy ass body that they used to handle a dead body and go and deliver babies, okay? And you know what the scriptures say? Do you know what the scriptures say concerning if you handle the dead body, the corpse of a human being? Let's see if I can get that. So this is the book of Numbers 19 verse 11. He that toucheth the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he shall be clean. Okay, let me go up a little bit. Okay, Numbers 19 verse 9. And a man that is clean shall gather up the ashes of the heifer and lay them up without the camp in a clean place, and it shall be kept for the congregation of the children of Israel for a water of separation. It is a purification for sin. And he that gathereth the ashes of the heifer shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the even. And it shall be unto the children of Israel and unto the stranger that sojourneth among them for a statute forever. He that toucheth the dead body of any man shall be unclean 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day he shall be clean. But if he purify not himself the 3rd day, and the 7th day he shall not be clean. Whosoever toucheth the dead body of any man that is dead, and purifieth not himself, defileth the tabernacle of Yahweh, and that soul shall be cut off from Israel, because the water of separation was not sprinkled upon him. He shall be unclean, his uncleanliness is yet upon him. This is the law. When a man dieth in a tent, all that come into the tent and all that is in the tent shall be unclean 7 days, and every open vessel which hath no covering bound upon it is unclean. And whosoever toucheth one that is slain with a sword in the open fields, or a dead body, or a bone of a man, or a grave, shall be unclean 7 days. And for an unclean person they shall take of the ashes of the burnt heifer of purification for sin, and a running water shall be put thereto in a vessel. And a clean person shall take hyssop, and dip it in the water, and sprinkle it upon the tent, and upon all the vessels, and upon the persons that were there, and upon him that touched a bone, or one slain, or one dead, or a grave. And the clean person shall sprinkle upon the unclean on the 3rd day, and on the 7th day. And on the 7th day he shall purify himself, and wash his clothes, and bathe himself in water, and shall be clean at even. Right, so you had a whole process of purification when you touch the corpse of a human being, okay? And this shows you that, hey man, Esau is unhygienic as hell, and Esau is filthy as hell, man. Because this is why, the apostles even mentioned this once, that, hey man, you can't, as an Israelite, work in something like a morgue, right? Because you'll not be able to, because we are basically working with dead bodies, right? They are basically just permanently unclean because if you are working with these dead bodies, okay? And it just shows you that Esau is the devil, because you have these devils who will be constantly operating on corpses, and constantly experimenting with corpses, and constantly doing things with these dead bodies, man. You even have some Edomites that are into having sex with corpses, right? Necrophilia. Like I said, man, Esau is the devil. So this was the process of making yourself clean after touching the dead body of a human being. You are basically unclean for 7 days, okay? 7 days until you cleanse yourself by touching the dead body of Osaka. You cleanse yourself, by using the you purify yourself by washing yourself and cleaning yourself, okay? And using the ashes of that heifer as well, or and the heifer, of course, being a female cow. So now let's keep reading. Semmelweis's contribution to medicine demonstrated the importance of hand hygiene. Semmelweis observed that the mortality rate from puerperal fever was significantly higher in wards where medical students and physicians who had previously examined corpses delivered babies, compared to wards where midwives delivered babies. He concluded that the transmission of infectious material from cadavers was a major cause of puerperal fever. Right, and this is how Esau was operating. Now, this wasn't like, oh, it was the 13th century or the 14th century or something that was happening far back in the past. Nah, this was around. Let's go into that. Let's open up the Wikipedia to show you the time when he was born. This is the same time period as the Victorian era, the 19th century, the early 19th century, okay? So Ignaz Semmelweis, right, born the 1st of July 1818 and died the 13th of August 1865, was a Hungarian physician and a scientist of German descent who was an early pioneer of antiseptic procedures and was described as the savior of mothers. Postpartum infection, also known as puerperal fever or childbed fever, consists of any bacterial infection of the reproductive tract following birth, and in the 19th century was common and often fatal. When dealing with Edomites, right, in Germany or Hungary or wherever the hell, these, or in Germany or Hungary, or basically anywhere that Esau Edom was, okay? Because let me also get this as well. Let's get this as well. Because, hey man, Jake wants having these problems, okay? Even with the transatlantic slave trade, just ending, right? Even with Jake's being under the rule of Esau Edom, Jake weren't having these problems, okay? Only Esau was, because these devils don't have any common hygiene, all right? Because even in the scriptures, man, if you deliver a child, right, you are going to be separated and have to be unclean for 7 days if it's a male child, right? And I believe 14 or so days if it's a female child. Let me just make sure I got that right. Right. So this is the book of Leviticus 12 verse 5. But if she bear a male child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her separation she shall continue in the blood of her purifying 66 days. Okay, so yeah, if after you and after a woman gives birth, she is technically unclean, right? So she has to be purified at that time as well. All right, so she has to be so basically she's living outside of the city, and she can't go to the temple for that time period, because you can't be unclean and go to the temple of the Most High, however Sham Yahweh, right? And even the scriptures tells you that hey, anybody that goes to the temple while they are unclean will be cut off from the nation of Israel. So basically that exile or be put to death. So yeah, and this is just going into this dude right here, Ignaz Semmelweis. And the funny thing about this whole thing is that it's not as though once this dude came out with his findings, right, Ignaz Semmelweis, that Esau was like, we see what's going on right now, we'll immediately change our practices in order to follow, and we'll start practicing proper cleaning of our tools, proper hygiene, in order to prevent this illness. Hell nah. They basically vilified him, called him insane, and threw him into a mental asylum. Okay, and that's why you have this question right here. Why was Ignaz Semmelweis put in an asylum? So let's get that. Ignaz Semmelweis, the pioneering physician who advocated for hand washing to prevent childbed fever, was committed to an asylum in 1865 due to his increasingly erratic behavior and mental deterioration. This was a time before the widespread understanding of mental illness, and Semmelweis's persistent focus on hygiene and his clashes with medical colleagues were likely misconstrued as signs of madness, right? So basically him just telling these Edomites to wash their hands and wash their tools before delivering these babies and giving birth to these children, which of course delivering children is really the role of a midwife. My man Esau was trying to transition childbirth into medical care so that he can siphon more money from you unwitting Edomites out there, right? And even the way which you deliver children is going off, right? When you are lying in the bed and you are basically pushing and pushing, and that's going off, and that goes back to, I think it was Louis the 14th, right? Which basically, and this is how Esau is a freak, man. Alright, so Louis the 14th, I like to watch children be born, and I believe I don't really recall if Louis the 14th was one of the Israelite rulers. I think that was after Esau came into power in Europe, right? So he liked to watch how women used to give birth to children. So he commanded all the women in his country to basically give birth lying down on a bed so that he could get a better view, right? And that now became common medical practice. And this is the reason why we constantly tell you, Jakes, man, hey, focus on the herbs, use the herbs for the healing, and don't be trusting and don't be putting trust on this white man's medicine, on Esau's medicine, because Esau has no idea what he's doing. Okay, these devils, and this isn't medical information, okay, I'm not giving medical information, I'm not telling people what to do, and I'm not stating that people should do practice something outside of the mainstream, right, medical consensus. Okay, all I am doing is just giving information, so I'll leave it at that. And this is just showing you, right, how Esau was living. So the Victorian era wasn't some lovely time that you would want to go back to, because this is how Esau either romanticizes his own kingdom without realizing how filthy and wicked this devil's rulership actually was. Okay, so with that, I'll end the video right there. Once again, all praises, honor and glory unto the Most High Yahweh Ba'asham Yahweh Ba'asham Raka Kwadash Wa Abad Babal Shalom. And through the Spirit of Yakim and you are quite edified. Shalom.